Great. And greetings and salutations, my friends. Thank you so much for joining me on another official episode of the Savage Panda podcast. And today I thought we'd talk a little bit about the cult like mindset that can somehow manifest itself in society. And I specifically wanted to start off with talking about Snyderverse fans because, oh my god, these Superman fans are some of the most toxic cult like grifters I've ever seen. Okay, for those of you who don't know, the new Superman movie is coming out. It's a brand new take on Superman. It's a remake, and it does not star everybody's favorite Superman, Henry Cavill. And people are very upset about that. Basically, got very divisive. There's a whole history to it, and there's this one section of the fandom that is exceedingly loyal to the director of Man of Steel and his interpretation of DC, and they don't want to have anything else. Nothing else is worth it for them. No other movies directed by anybody else. And, you know, they feel like they were robbed because Zack Snyder had a very particular vision, and it was mildly good. I thought the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League was okay. It was fine. I didn't hate it. Didn't think it was particularly memorable or amazing, but it was cool. It was cool. I enjoyed, the 4 hours that I spent watching it. It was fun in that regard. I'll never watch it again, so that's how much I liked it. But now that a new Superman is coming out, a complete reboot, new director, new actor, new studio heads, this cult-like rift has formed in the fandom. Well, now there's this offset splinter cell of guys who've never touched grass, and they need to go out and touch grass because this is what they're writing. Let me read this to you. Stand up and fight for Snyderverse on July 11. Basically, they all live under this deluded fantasy where if the new Superman movie fails, the studio, Warner Brothers, will then go back and rehire the old director from the other Superman movies and get him to reboot his universe again, and they can go back to having their favorite, version of Superman. Really wild, really crazy. Movie business doesn't work that way. He's probably never going to direct a superhero movie again, especially not after Rebel Moon. I don't know who would trust him to write a superhero film after the slop that was his latest outing, Rebel Moon. But anyways, this is what these cult-like fans wrote. And I'm going to start here, and then we're just going to talk a little bit about how do you avoid falling into this trap in your own personal life, because you don't want to end up like this. You don't want to be the guy who's so lost and deluded in his own mind, who lives in such a small bubble where he's so out of touch as what we see here. So let's read this. Fight for our Snyderverse on the Imposter Superman release day. And again, the new Superman movie is the Imposter Superman, even though I think he looks more like Superman than Henry Cavill does. Here's what we can do to make a difference. Post spoilers everywhere. People are less likely to see or enjoy the movie if it is already spoiled. One, that's not true. If I'm under the impression that the movie is going to be very, very good, even if I know the ending, I'll still go see it because I like movies. And so yeah, even I've had some Marvel movies spoiled for me. I still went to see them, and they were still good. So I don't think that's entirely true. Also, people who give spoilers on the internet are the worst. Or at least people who don't give spoiler warnings are the worst. I ain't a fan of those people. But number 2, leave bad ratings on review sites. We know for sure gun bots will post fake positive reviews, so we must let people know the truth and balance the bias out with realistic scores. Again, complete delusion. They're going to do some... Okay, we have to go and do something incredibly dishonest to deceive people into our cult and being the way that we want them to be and thinking what we want them to think, because we know for sure that other people are going to do the same thing. And so we must operate off of dishonest intentions and for the greater good, right? Because again, so lost in their little bubble, the cute little bubble, that their version of reality is so great and so good, and all the forces of evil are against them. They have to go out and be dishonest and deceitful and deceive people, and just because there's going to be bots. And by the way, this is why we need to have verified review scores on Rotten Tomatoes, because people do this crap. They go on to these sites and leave fake reviews and try to skew the reviews of the film in order to tank it or change the outcome. And you know, the people's like, no, they don't do that. Guys, no. I saw it with my own eyes, okay? Rebel Moon 2. 24 hours before that movie came out, I saw it had a whole bunch of 5-star reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. Okay? Audience reviews. 24 hours before the movie was out on Netflix, nobody had even seen it yet, and all these cult-like brainwashed Snyder bros were giving it 5-star reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. So we know they're going to do this. We know that they're going to try. They're going to try really, really hard. Fortunately, you have to verify that you actually saw the movie. And so they either have to, which conflicts with what they say next, is reserve tickets online, but don't complete the purchase. By selecting and reserving tickets, it gets taken out of the pool for a period of time, which means this has a chance of stopping gun bots from buying tickets. So again, just assuming that bots are going to buy the tickets instead of, people who are actually excited about the movie, because the movie's probably going to be very, very good, and people are actually going to want to go see it, unlike the Snyderverse movies, which admittedly are not that good. So again, it's just, so they don't want to give money to the film to make it do good, but in order to actually affect the Rotten Tomatoes score, the verified Rotten Tomatoes score, they would have to verify that they paid money to go see the movie. So that doesn't really work. And people kind of don't trust audience or critic reviews anymore anyways, because there's always some sort of bias. Like if the movie is like left-wing and promotes the right agenda, all of the critics will love it, but the audience will hate it. Verified audience will hate it. But if the movie even has a slight, conservative or problematic overtone, it's like all the critics will dislike it and all the audience will like it, and everybody just twists that to make it mean whatever they want it to mean. And so if the critic score is low, there's like, oh, those liberal shills, those biased critics, they're making it up, they're lying because they don't want me to have a good time at the movie. But if the critic scores are really, really high, but you don't like the movie, it's like, oh, those shills, they're just shilling and saying it's a good movie because they got to toe the line for the agenda and blah, 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 right? I'm not saying that doesn't happen. Of course it happens. We're human beings. That's why we're talking about this. People do this. But a lot of times we fall into the trap where we'll just make an assumption in order to support our own preference and bias as to what's actually true. So like, for example, say there's a particular actress that tweets things that you disagree with politically, right? It could be anything you want, conservative, liberal. Just imagine an actress in an upcoming film tweeting, an actor in an upcoming film tweeting and saying things publicly that you personally disagree with. Whatever that happens to be, that's fine. And then you get all bitter, right? It's like, oh, that actor is the worst. They're a complete shill. They're an idiot. They should listen to my favorite podcaster and learn a thing or two about this planet. They don't know anything. They don't understand. Blah blah blah. You let it get a bee in your bonnet, right? You get all upset. He's like, I'm not gonna go see that movie. They're gonna ruin it. And it's not. And I can articulate this because I felt it myself. But it's not that you just don't want to go see the movie. You hope that the movie does bad. You ever felt this way? You hope that a particular film or piece of art underperforms because then it vindicates and validates your feeling. It's like, yeah, that actor or director they said the thing that I didn't want them to say. They said what I think is wrong and inappropriate. And see, their movie's failing because everyone agrees with me. And everybody doesn't want them to succeed because they all agree with me. And everybody's offended just like me. Or maybe the movie just wasn't well marketed. Maybe the movie's just not that good. And then when a movie does come out and it performs like mildly okay, it's like, oh, the critic, say the movie comes out and it gets high critic scores. And it's like, oh, those critics are shills. They're all just lying to me. They're towing the line. They're being biased. They're being unbalanced and unfair. They're skewing it to make the movie appear better than it actually is because they agree with the political views of the actors. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. Of course it happens. I'm just saying, have you ever caught yourself thinking these things and just falling into that trap of just assuming whatever narrative makes you feel good? Like, sometimes you're wrong. Like, sometimes the movie is actually just great and people are going to go see it no matter what the main actor tweeted. Like, sometimes that happens. But we don't like to think that way because then we lose our emotional vindication, our, feeling that we are righteous. I heard Jordan Peterson say it once, there's no greater high than self-righteous vindication. You want to feel vindicated, but not just vindicated, but like in a righteous sense. Like the world wronged you and all these people, they're liars. Sorry, but it doesn't work that way. That's basically a false dichotomy. World is a lot more complex than that, and you need to understand that the 99.9999999% of everything that happens in this planet is not about you, not for you, and doesn't care about you. You're not the center of this planet, and so I personally have tried to be more and more wary of my own mindset when it comes to this stuff, where I find myself thinking, it's like I find myself creating narratives about the world that put me in a positive light and make me the righteous victim or vindicate me righteously in a way. And I try to be wary of doing that and understand that it's like, well, no, maybe there's other reasons that this happened. Maybe the people who didn't go to see this movie, they didn't see it for the same reasons that I didn't see it. Or maybe people that think the movie's bad don't think it's bad for the same reasons I think it's bad. It's not always going to be an accurate reflection of how I feel, and it's not always going to vindicate me. But I see so much chatter online these days of YouTubers and people online where they literally will spin things so hard. You see these titles on YouTube where it's just like, Disney's panicking. It's like, are they? How do you know? Are you there? It's like, Disney's panicking because this movie is going to flop. It's like, bro, they got like 20 other movies coming out in the next 3 years. They're still going to make billions of dollars. Like, it's gonna be a while before Disney goes out of business. I don't think they're panicking just yet. But I've been seeing this going on for like 5 to 10 years because I'm chronically on the internet, so I can remember it, right? But like back when Captain Marvel came out or something, it's like Disney's panicking, and their Captain Marvel gets bad reviews. It like still made $1 billion. And Disney's still in business, and they still have billion-dollar films coming out. And so, like Deadpool and Wolverine. And so, people keep rehashing the same spin, like over and over and over again on the internet. And it's always a spin that paints themselves as the righteous victims or the righteous prophet, where it's just like, we predicted this. We knew this all along. This corporation or these politicians are panicking. And it's like, but they make the same titles like every week. And if I was to take them seriously, it would be like, wait, this company and these politicians, they're panicking every single week, like just nonstop all the time, because these YouTubers, they just keep rehashing the same titles over and over and over again. Disney's panicking. Conservatives are panicking. The liberals are panicking. Democrats panicking. Republicans panicked. But it's like every week. It's like, am I to believe that these politicians are panicking 24/7 nonstop? No, they're not. You're spinning it. You're not in the room. You don't actually know what's going on. You don't know what they're thinking. Sometimes you're right. Sometimes they might actually be panicking. But more often than not, you're just spinning it to create an emotionally satisfied narrative for a particular audience. And so, for example, if you're a conservative YouTuber and you have conservative audience, and as soon as something slightly goes bad, and it can be as vague as like half an article where someone in the party criticizes someone else in the party, and then they'll spin it to be like, the liberals are panicking, infighting is starting, and they just keep spinning it over and over and over again. And am I to believe that this is happening all the time? Then maybe it is. I'm not deluded about politics being, smooth sailing. I'm sure it's chaotic as frick. I'm just pointing out that there seems to be a pattern where people are spinning stuff all the time. And I just find that really, really amusing and interesting. And I want to encourage you guys to pay attention to it and ask yourself the question, wait a minute, do I know that? How do I know that? Where did I get the information from? Where did this particular YouTuber get the information from? Like, think about it. It's like, how do they know? What articles did they read? Who wrote the articles? How did they get the information? And how do I verify the information? And a very critical question to ask is there other sets of data and information that would disprove my current interpretation of the data I have? See, it's not enough to just take data and and interpret it. You always want to ask the question, is there more data that this particular journalist or podcaster is leaving out because it conflicts with the narrative that they're trying to push on me? That's a big question to ask. The big question to always ask, what I want to drive home for you guys today in this podcast episode is, what data are they leaving out because it conflicts with the narrative that they're trying to push onto you? That's the question I want to ask you. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not naming names. I'm not saying your particular favorite podcaster is doing this to you. I'm simply encouraging you to consistently ask this question. It's like, okay, this particular pundit or podcaster or politician or journalist or whatever is telling me a particular narrative based on a particular set of data. Have they left any data out that would slightly alter or add more nuance to the narrative in a way that might be against their personal agenda? That's the question I want you to ask. And the reason I'm keeping this, relatively politically neutral, because it applies to everybody. The longer I've been alive, the longer I realize people on both sides lie. There's liars everywhere. There's people in bubbles everywhere. And one of the things I'm consistently interested in is trying to figure out, okay, how do I expand my bubble to get as close to the full bubble of reality as possible? And that's interesting, because I don't think it's fully possible for humans in this life to do that. That's why I think free speech and freedom of expression are so important, because I believe in objective truth, and I believe that what is true all the time. But I don't believe a single human being is capable of fully seeing and fully grasping 100% of the truth at all times. Which is why we need other perspectives to shed new light on different angles of the same idea and the same issue, so that we can get closer and closer to a more balanced and nuanced view and approach of the world. And so that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. That was the core idea I wanted to give to you guys, is try to avoid this cult-like mindset where you're just constantly reframing and retelling every single story, and every single piece of information that you get is immediately spun and flipped to put you in the righteous position and vindicate you. It's like, oh yeah, this happened because those people over there are doing this and that. It's like, well, maybe there's a correlation, but correlation doesn't equal causation. At least do the work to prove the causation before you just assume it and make yourself feel good about yourself based off of a lie. And so, if you found this interesting and you found it useful, I'm going to be doing this podcast every day, Monday through Friday, from here on until the end of time. So I encourage you